Which of the following is not a part of the chain of infection? And the chain of infection, let's say that you're reading this question on the exam and you're not sure what the chain of infection is. Well, if you see the word chain, you might think of links coming together. You might think of a food chain. Think of it in terms of how things cycle through. And of infection, so this is the cycle of infection. How are infections spread from one to another, or just spread in general? So we have our cycle here, right? And when you have your cycle, the basic idea is that there's someone who has the illness. So in some case, it could be a person it has the illness, or it could be an animal or even an insect in terms of like tick-borne illnesses. Let's say that this tick has the illness on it. So let's just say that this is the illness to represent it. And then after that, we need to get it to somewhere else. So maybe it goes to another person, maybe it's going to an animal, just going somewhere to get from point A to point B. So how we could label these steps to go from 1, 2, 3, we have our reservoir, which is a word for the person who's holding on to the illness for now. We have our mode of transmission, and that's how you get from one point to another. So maybe it could be shaking a hand, a sneeze on a surface. That's just the way that it's moving from point A to point B. And then when it gets to your poor people here who catch the illness, that is your susceptible host. So we say susceptible because they're open and ready to get this illness. And it could be more likely to go to someone at high risk, such as immunocompromised, the very old, the very young. But really, the susceptible host could be just anybody who the illness is transmitted to in this chain of infection. So looking back at the question, we're seeing which is not part of the chain of infection. So we know the reservoir is part of it, because looking back here, the reservoir was where our chain started. So we could eliminate that because it's saying which is not part of it. Your mode of transmission, that was over here in step 2. So we could eliminate that. And then your susceptible host was over here in step 3. We could eliminate that. And that leaves us with vaccination. And vaccination would be the correct answer because vaccinations might help to change the chain of infection. Because if, let's say, this illness over here that we're looking at is preventable with vaccination, and let's say that this person has their vaccination against it, it might prevent them or help stop this spread of infection for them, or they might have lesser symptoms. But it's not part of the chain of infection itself. It just might alter it, but it's not part of this whole cycle that we're looking at. So therefore, D, vaccination is not part of the chain of infection and is the answer to this question.